DeFi Kingdoms, where you can summon heroes, trade with other players, quest, and fight challenging enemies in a fantasy world brought to life in pixel art animation. Command your legion, claim your legacy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's DeFi Kingdoms AMA. We do also have Fox that will be joining us momentarily. He was working through some technical issues. But in the meantime, we are going to go ahead and get started. So we've got a few things on the agenda today, and we are going to start off with a few updates for a moment, and then we will roll on into some questions. So the first update is we have an exciting new creator Visage to announce. It went live last night. For any of you that have not seen it yet, so the new YellowPanter Visage is live and available. Shout out to YellowPanter, who is a fantastic creator. And that means that currently we have two Visages available, which are the YellowPanter Visage as well as the Big Red Head from Big Red is still available as well. We're going to jump to a quick video there. So as y'all can see, in case you missed the update, you can now see directly in the Visage shop how many of each Visage have been purchased. So you can keep an eye on it there as well. But super exciting to see that. The Big Red Head, as you all probably know by now, but in case you've forgotten, there is $15,000 worth of TD that will be evenly divided amongst each of the purchases of a Big Red Head. And that will happen after the sales close, obviously. Also, shout out to Big Red, who still has the ongoing Hunts sponsorship as well, which is very exciting. I'm going to go slightly out of order here because we do not have Fox back in just yet. But while we wait for him, I'm going to go over to Dreamer to talk about Consensus Austin, which is coming up in just a couple weeks.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, we could.
I got auto-muted. I don't know why I did it.
Oh, you're back.
I don't know what's happening. Yeah, 2 weeks from today in Austin, Texas, there are a number of events happening around Consensus. We did try to make a big presence at Consensus a few years ago. It wasn't really the right vibe at the time for like a big showing of a Web3 game, but I think it was coupled with Decentralized at that time, which went really well. But this year, we see Metis is doing an event on, I think, the 30th, 31st, can't remember. But Karate Combat, Metis, and Avalanche, they're all doing events on that same day. So from a biz dev perspective, it looks like it'll be a great opportunity to participate. On the Avalanche side, it's kind of a private event that is focused around raising, and the timing and the stars aligning has never really been there for us on that front. With a number of things that's happened in the world and the industry, that is an area, especially with PvP coming out. I think from a third party looking in, the potential impact on what a player versus player feature that includes a lot of really interesting bits with the Web3 integration and what we can do in the like Web3 gaming space. It could be quite interesting. So I'm really excited about that event with Avalanche, even to just like rub shoulders with a lot of those that are active in that kind of VC private investing arm currently, because I think that we've seen different waves of that early on, at least early on in terms of like DeFi Kingdoms life. There was very different focus than there is now. I think that the delivery system, whether people are looking for equity, tokens, how active they are, what they've learned from previous raises is all kind of shaped the world. So I want to go and learn from not only those that are there to invest, those that are pitching, and obviously see our friends at Avalanche. Karate Combat has an IFC2 event that is, as I believe it, built like literally within the consensus event. So sponsorships were hard to come by there. We are not going to be on the pit since so many people are fighting for spot on the pit. But we are very close friends with Karate Combat guys, looking forward to see the pretty big influencer fights, their big normal fights, and rub shoulders with them as well. And then the Metis guys have an event, I think on the same day, smack between Avalanche and Karate Combat, that we want to be able to support and see them and continue in our efforts there, not only with what we know publicly, but they're really excited to co-market with us in creative ways. So I believe as of now, the plan is Sunbury and myself will be there to represent, at least on that very full day, biz dev opportunities to divide and conquer a little bit. There may be others in the community going as well. I will pause though. Hold on, did you say KP was planning on going? I didn't want to speak for you, KP, but anybody else do we know?
I will be. I'm headed down to Austin, so I'm going to be hanging out with some friends. And since Consensus is going on and all the events that Dreamer just mentioned, I thought it'd be a great time to connect with everybody, the Avalanche guys, the Metis guys, everybody else as well. So looking forward to it. If anybody's going to be there in Austin and the next couple of, well, it's going to be towards the end of the month here, the 29th through the 31st, feel free to DM me and let me know. I'm happy to grab beers and talk to you. It's so much fun hanging out with people at GDC up in San Francisco. And now since we're going to be down there in the Austin area, it'd be fun to get together as well. But yeah, we should all be down there hanging out. And I know Dreamer and Sunbear are going to be doing some special events and some things around raises and other things. But I'm happy to do some community bonding and get together and chat with you guys if you're going to be in that area. So I'll send it back to you, Dreamer.
Real quick, actually, I'm going to intercept that. I believe also just on the topic of events and community, y'all are doing a meetup on Saturday, right? KP, sorry.
Yeah, that is right. Bolon, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, we're going to be hanging out again in San Diego at Battle Mage Brewery, one of Bolon's favorite places in the entire world. Sticks Intern, Sergeant, Dr. J, a couple of other people hopefully be there as well. So come hang out with us. We've got a couple packs of DFK playing cards as well. We'll be hanging out for at least 3 or 4 hours there, having a good time, chatting about everything Web3. So if you are in the San Diego or LA area, Orange County area, want to come down, hang out on Saturday, feel free to look it up on Twitter. All the details are there. Thanks, Bolon.
Thank you. I do love Battle Mage Brewing. Sorry about that. Back to you, Dreamer.
I've been intercepted. Yeah, nothing more to add really. If you're in the area and planning to go to the events, reach out. We'd love to see you. We'll be working hard there. We're very limited on appetite for some of these events and how expensive they are. So when we show up big. And when we feel like the opportunities are best spent doing other things, like, show up to a smaller degree biz dev, that's what we're doing with this one. So excited for that in 2 weeks, and we'll report back on it after as well. Over to you, Bolon.
Thank you. Yeah, if you're going to be in Austin and you're going to Consensus, make sure you hunt them down and say hi. Pursue them, track them. But no, it should be a lot of fun. Consensus was fun the year that I was there, so I'm sure it'll be a great event and looking forward to hearing about it afterwards. One last update, and then we will go into some community questions, but going over to Fox to talk about community governance voting, I guess, in general.
Yeah, hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Sound good.
All right. Yeah, so basically kind of the same thing as last week. I've been really busy on PvP, making a lot of progress with the proof of concepts. We actually deployed a lot of contracts over to Metis Chain earlier this week as part of the testing. A lot of integration stuff with Layer 0 as well, which is always fun. And just basically seeing what things will look like. We have a lot of different ideas on the best and most efficient way to build it, and we're trying some of them out. We're pretty far along on a lot of it, so that's exciting. This is all just on the back end side of things, not even the front end side, which is also progressing in parallel, and is actually really cool from what I've seen. But I can't talk about that. That's more of a Beetle dude thing, and he's not here. So that's been fun. Shout out and kudos to Hubert, who's been also instrumental in trying to make sure that we eke out the most performance gains we can and be as efficient as possible there to make sure that we save everyone on gas. And then the other thing that's been the rest of my time is the voting interface. I've been interfacing with Snapshot. They have some devs that are really, really good. So having them speak with the Holiday devs and sort of figure out what needs to be done on the smart contract side for those smart accounts to implement EIP 721 and EIP 1271 to basically support like the voting there, and also building out the interface part of it inside of our actual interface has been the bulk of my time, which is really fun because they have a really good API and we can basically show all of the proposals and the current votes and all of the breakdown of what amounts make up those votes for each person, all the people who voted, how much they voted, and all that stuff. And it's actually really cool to see inside of the interface because you can see things like the names and like the profile pics of all the people who voted and things like that as well. Makes it a lot more of a community feel, more of a personalized thing. So that's really good, really slick. The idea is that when there is a vote, there'll be a little pop-up sort of thing in the game that will show there's one active proposal or two active proposals, and sort of have that be like a little, hey, over here, have a look at this. And then like you'll go there and you'll see it and you'll be able to place your votes there. So that hopefully should increase the engagement with those, make it easier for people to be aware of them so they don't accidentally miss out on them. And just overall, like really good experience for people. I also want to talk a little bit about the plan for rollout for this, because obviously the holiday part is still being worked on, not quite ready, but the rest of it works fine. So like if you're using MetaMask to vote, then that works really well. So what we want to do is try to get this out as soon as we can, because we do have a number of proposals that have been kind of sitting there waiting for like the system to be ready for that vote. And it's mostly there now, besides the holiday part. And with the ability for people to actually delegate Cedule with their holiday to another account, you can actually vote with your holiday Cedule using a MetaMask that's been delegated to. The only thing not possible right now is heroes that are sitting on the holiday account wouldn't be able to be counted. So our idea is, rather than wait potentially weeks or month to get that part ready, we would like to propose that we could schedule or announce some proposals that we want to do. And I think there's 3 or 4 of them, maybe like a week in advance, and say, hey, on this date, we're going to do a proposal. So you have time, if you're using Holiday and you have heroes and you want to participate in the vote with those heroes, you have time to move those to a MetaMask using the Transfer All tool, which shouldn't be too painful, hopefully, and actually have those be ready to participate in that vote at the time of the snapshot. And then after that snapshot time, you can, of course, move those back into Holiday and continue to use them. So that's our idea right now. We hate to sort of hold off on those proposals for too long because there's a lot of things that need to be decided. So just a heads up, we might be making an announcement here in the coming days about some of those things. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, good sir. And yes, stay tuned most definitely. All right. We're going to roll into some questions to get today started. First one, we're going to be throwing over to Hubert, which works. He's the only one that hasn't spoke yet, so now we can make him talk. The, I guess, crux of the question is, when and how are void shards going to come into play? People have been able to collect them for a little bit already so far. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. And hey guys, yeah. So as we've kind of explained with void shards, the plan with those is for them to work kind of as a key to gain access to specific hunts. Up to this point, we haven't released any hunts that require void shards, but I'd say that I think probably the next one we release will require that. As far as like when that will actually come out, right now we've shifted our focus over to PvP, so I think it will still be a while as we're going to be prioritizing everything that we need to make sure that we have our PvP feature nice and polished and across the finish line. But once that's all done, then we'll start looking again at more PvE content, including more hunts. So for the time being, void shards are, they're just, you'll be collecting them, and then you'll be, I think, glad that you have them when it comes time to like being able to access that content. As they're, with void hunts, we tend to have unique loot, and with ones that would require void shards, we may do a few other things that are a little different with that. So I guess, stay tuned, but the plan hasn't really changed as far as their usage. And it's likely that you'll need more than one typically to actually access these fights. So, but yeah, still a ways out on that.
Would you say that it is fair to say that the ability to collect them a little bit is intended, because if you're trying to collect void shards at the same time that you're trying to use them with no like backstock, you're going to be real busy.
Right. Yeah. I think it's intended to be like, oh, you've done a lot of hunts. Here's a reward. You have access to this special fight that has special loot. And So like if you've been doing all your hunts up until this point, you'll be at a nice point when we actually release that fight, because you'll have instant access, and have first dibs on all the loot that will be available. So yeah, and I think I've kind of alluded to like what the void shard concept is kind of based on. For those, I know Kupo's here, so he knows what I'm talking about, but anyone else that happened to play Final Fantasy XI and experience their Beastman seal system, this was kind of a similar idea as how that works, where it's you get them just kind of randomly at a very rare drop rate, and you need a significant amount of them to like be able to participate in fights that give you access to like really valuable gear. So and the fights themselves are also unique and fun. So that's kind of the idea here. Just kind of you by playing the game, you can play more of the game, kind of thing. So, yep.
The best way. Thank you, sir. So without necessarily having to go overly technical, do we currently intend to encourage, or how do we currently intend to encourage players to develop a legion? Will having more heroes be an advantage for the commander? So I guess just to take it a step further, will legions have power determined by the composition and variety of the team? Or, as we often see now, are a lot of heroes more so fodder for the mill, so to speak, to create, those best heroes?
So yeah, good question. I think in terms of like a total team score, if that was what part of that question was asking, if we were to do something like that, that would be something kind of much further down the road after we're like past travel and we're looking at kind of more large scale content. But in terms of just like the value of having more heroes versus just a few really good ones, I think you can already see it right now, where like you do need to have potions to be able to be successful in PvE for the most part, unless you have like super great heroes. With PvP, we're also intending to have potion usage be a thing too. So, you need heroes to be, unless you just buy the potions outright, like to get those potions on your own, you can have heroes be doing the different profession quests that you need to gather the ingredients you need for those potions. And that kind of, having a group of heroes that support your other heroes kind of feeling is something that I think will just get extended further once we get further down the road and we have crafting out, and we'll have other resources that you'd be going out for. Once we have the kind of the scrub fight system out, there'll be more means for you to have easier content, easier fights, where you might send out more of your heroes that you don't use for void hunts per se to do. And we have other thoughts as well for utilizing heroes that I think will just, will just continue to add to the benefit of having them. And of course, you know, if you are trying to go for like really good heroes, the dark summoning a path is available. Also, just, you know, having for normal summoning as well, having more options available for specific mutations, I think is also useful. But yeah, I'd say they are useful now, and they'll just get more and more useful to have more in the future, and they'll be easier to use too once we get expeditions out, which is coming along pretty nicely.
Could I chime in there too?
Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, as Hubert just went over, and I imagine there are a lot of things he probably was holding back on saying as well, that are in his brain that are either in progress or haven't been started yet on the design or other parts. But the short answer is there's going to be a ton to do with a hero. Today there already is. I mean, you just look at duels versus hunts versus summoning versus crafting and using that, and then, you know, turning all that into a play to earn aspect and selling to others or building your own. There are already different paths, and I think you kind of use that word path there, Hubert. Think about the commander in the game, not even like the quote unquote finished like foundational game, but just a year from now versus today, versus a year ago or 2 years ago. Like the overall role of the player or the commander has changed a lot. I think that the main thing, the main takeaway is, as we introduce new things that can be applied to heroes, even just like PvP, that changes the game for you as a commander. If you only had 10 heroes this entire time, and you'd have to look, okay, how, you know, where do I want to focus on using them? How do we want to min-max them? What are the best classes? What are the best compositions? Even sometimes a season changes, or a new feature comes out, or a new hunt or a new class comes out. It's always going to kind of change that for the commander. The fun part is intended to be like, as a commander, what do you do with your legion? Is it the, and I'm probably going to get sound clipped again. Maybe I'll stop. I was going to say, is it the size of the legion that matters? But last time everybody sent me things of what I said last week and made fun of me. So is it the number of heroes in your legion that matters, or is it the quality per hero? Kind of depends on the player. And that's what we want to do, is create options of types of gameplay and make it safe and make sense for the player, for the economy, and for those that are like consuming it. But as a commander that is looking to be more in the PvP space, you're probably still going to at least rely on other players that have the legions to make the potions, to have all the resources to support PvP. You might want to do it yourself. Where do you get those heroes? Do you have a little sub legion of min-maxing and trying to do the best that you can on all the summoning, or are you relying on others in the game? Are you currently wanting to take advantage of something happening in a certain part of the game that requires you to travel to, but you don't have any heroes there? Okay, well, you either better make a decision as a commander to take them away from some place, send them to the new place, or buy some that may already be there. So anyway, I'll stop adding different examples to what Hubert said, but definitely each feature changes the need as a commander. It also relies on what you want out of the game. But in the future, there will be ongoing reasons for people to build out their legion for different purposes within the world of DeFi Kingdoms. It's kind of up to the player to choose what they want to take advantage of and participate in.
DeFi Kingdoms is all about choices. All right. Thoughts on where Berserker and Seer currently stand in terms of power level, for example, compared to warriors or archers?
Yeah, so I think that question had a little bit more like asking about, you know, how the ability to win with 3 of the same class, and how those are not as easy to win with. And I'll just say I don't think the balance requires that every class needs to be able to win void hunts with 3 of the same class. In general, each class kind of brings its own flavor to the battlefield, and it's up to us as designers to make sure that it's fun to play. But whether or not that they can, they're versatile or like hardy enough to be able to handle, being, I guess, a mono class team versus kind of a mixture. I don't think that's kind of a requirement that we put on ourselves as we're designing these. So I do think those two classes both have very unique features about them. I think they'll have, they have their own kind of use case. I think especially once we have PvP out, we'll see some of them, like Berserker in particular, I think is a little bit harder to use with some of the Void Hunts just because it's less predictable. But for PvP, I could imagine, the concern that your opponent might have when they see that you've brought in a bunch of Berserkers and the chaos that will ensue. We're always looking at the game balance, and we'll likely make adjustments as we go, as things, as we have PvP out. I think especially we'll be able to see the meta play out a lot more quickly with more, as people are playing against each other, which will help as well with our balancing. But we're constantly looking at the game state, looking at how good each class is, and adjusting as we go. So, I'd say I think the classes are in a pretty good spot right now, but there also is definitely room to be adjustments as we keep going.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think it's important to remember too that the two Void Hunts that we have currently aren't necessarily representative of all combat situations, so things change. Let's see. So, listening to Bogside Chats, shout out Matty Pesk, the famous podcast, I heard them say that Mythic Squad won't be competitive in PvP. But if we look at the Void Hunt leaderboards, at least 12 out of the top 100 players come from Mythic Squad, such as Ray Badge, Batar, Skiller, Dread Syndicate, Styx Intern, Dragonfly Tales, Just Have Fun. Oh God, I'm going to regret this. Never Naimai, 91 Karmas, Darius, Styx himself, and Ogre, where in the leaderboards we don't find Matty Pesk, Franz, or anyone from Bogside Chats. So, why does Bogside Chats say that Mythic Squad won't rule PvP, and what are our opinions on this? I'll kick it off because why not? I'll just say Bogside Chats has a lot of hot takes. Maddie's been on a spree lately. So it'll be interesting to watch this get settled in PvP. Because from the day of launch on, that's how all disputes get settled in DeFi Kingdoms. It's straight to the Coliseum. So I'm looking forward to finding out who can win between Bogside Chats and Mythic Squad. Anybody else have thoughts?
Sounds like Maddie's been slacking if he's not in the top 100. What's going on, Maddie?
Yeah, Maddie, where's your hunts at, bro? Oh, good times. I love it. Poor Maddie. We've been on him for like 3 weeks straight now. All right. Let's see. Thoughts on Chatterbox. So for example, double Chatterbox on an archer. How is Chatterbox intended to work on physical damage classes?
Oh, sorry, took me a second to get to my mute button. Yeah, so Chatterbox, it helps prevent silence, which silence itself is more towards it'll stop you from being able to do anything that does magic damage or is considered a magical attack. It does interrupt channel abilities right now. And I'm trying to remember if we adjusted, we were talking about adjusting something with that, but I think at least right now it will interrupt any channel. But for the moment, I'd say for archers in particular, I don't know that any of their abilities are considered magical. So Chatterbox wouldn't really help them that much. There's kind of a dichotomy between silence and fear, where fear prevents you from doing physical actions besides the basic attack, but it doesn't prevent you from being able to do any magical actions. That's just kind of how that side effect works. So I think a double Chatterbox archer is probably not going to be as good as an archer that has other traits, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. This one is probably a Beetle / Zipper question, which we don't have with us today, but that's okay because that means we have free reign to add to their list. When doing a potion loadout for hunts, thoughts on adding a craft button alongside the purchase button for when you are out of that particular potion?
Yeah, I guess since Beetle's not here, I'll just say that should go on the list and probably on Zip's list. Who just said don't do it? Zip.
If you want to prevent it, Zip, you got to join the AMA. It's the only way. Thoughts on having a pet burn mechanic called cooking? You can make some Hechu burgers or some blub grub. I'm not sure what they're supposed to do, but thoughts on the mechanic itself, other than PETA is on the phone right now.
Blub grub is a pretty good name. Yeah, I think I'd prefer not to do that to our pets, but I do think that somewhere down the line we should be thinking about some additional burn mechanics for pets. But yeah, I don't know that cooking would be the way that we would go.
So dark. Thoughts on a rebirth system? So once a hero hits the max level 20 or whatever the level cap at that time is, they can be reborn. A reborn hero has everything reset, skills, stats, level, etc. But the reward is that the hero gains a single summon back, and it would be capped at whatever their original max summons is as the number of times they can do that. This should be particularly expensive and involve the sacrificing of another hero as well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting idea. I think in terms of like doing a level reset, something like that, like that could be one approach we could take. We have we are working on other burn mechanics right now, as we kind of talked about. That I think we're getting close to the point where we're going to be able to introduce that, and maybe some of the things that are included in that will be sufficient to, I guess, sate the desire for things like this. But we'll see. In general, I think like reaching max level and then having something to gain from that. I think there's some things that we can do, and then there's other things that we should maybe be careful about, because that max level doesn't necessarily stay at that point. We will be raising the level cap eventually. So, if we do too much, then it can kind of be just a little bit tricky when it comes time to like change level caps. We have to do a bunch of additional adjustments. I don't dislike the idea. I just don't see us going down that road anytime soon, especially with the things we have kind of cooking right now.
You said cooking. Thoughts on a level 1 through 9 hunt, which I think might actually be more along the lines of our scrub fights. But thoughts on that idea / any input on timing?
Yeah, so I think the void hunts in particular are intended to be more boss fights and kind of a more like higher end piece of content, in terms of you have to use higher tiered heroes as far as their level goes and whatnot. So I'm not sure that we would take the time to build a hunt that would start at a lower level. But with that said, as you mentioned, we do have our scrub fight system that we're planning on, which that is going to be a lot more accessible for everybody, and something that you can begin doing even at level 1. So that, I think, will probably satisfy what this question's asking for. But hunts in particular require a little bit of additional focus, just to build it. We make the enemies extra unique. We make sure that the fight is very challenging, and have specific music tracks associated with the specific backgrounds. So there's a lot that goes into doing a hunt, whereas like the scrub fight system is going to be a little bit more quantity over quality in that regard.
Nice. And I imagine that will be after PvP.
Yes, yeah, yes. We're still, our main focus is PvP right now, so everything else is kind of on hold, and except for maybe small things that we can kind of fit in the process. But yeah, for the big things like this, it'll be post PvP.
For the record, combat is everything else related to combat. Expeditions is still progressing. It's happening. It's progressing as we speak. No one panic.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry for any misleading there. We're getting really close on, like, Expeditions is moving right along very well. So
Yes, that is also going to be super exciting. Will there be a turn timer in PvP?
Yeah, so we do plan to have kind of a shot clock type of system. We are still, can't say too much about it, but we want it to be somewhat flexible, and have maybe, like, for private matches, a little bit more customization about it. Tournaments, of course, would have specific rules about how that would work, but in general, I think with any sort of player versus player content, we don't want anyone to be able to, like, grief their opponent by just taking extremely long time between decisions. So I think it's kind of a necessity. Otherwise, I know some people would do it, unfortunately. So
If there's a way, it will be done. Thoughts on having a future feature in combat to give a small bonus or effect if your entire team has the same last name?
kind of a family bonus. I do think that's an interesting idea. I think it's not something that we've ever really considered. And with the names in particular, it's all very random in terms of what you end up with. So that's kind of interesting, and it could be a cool little mechanic as a little thing. I will just say I probably don't see us doing anything with that anytime soon, but I'm going to keep it in mind. I'm going to even write a little note down, just because I do kind of like that as a neat little extra. But sometimes with these neat little extras, it's also, like, kind of hard. It adds to complexity in the game, and especially if it's anything that's, like, super useful, then it's like just another thing amongst all the other things that we have that you have to be aware of. So do need to be a little bit careful about things like that. But anyway, I'll still make a little note. Maybe it could be something down the road.
For sure, for sure. So have heard team members say that the game is 15% 15 complete before. More recently, a single mention of 20. What do these estimates include? So before I go further into that question, I think the way to answer this is really just it's not meant to be like a literal precise measurement. Like, we sat down and had the whole roadmap and went, we're this far in, because realistically, we don't have the whole roadmap. Like, we have a lot of things planned out, and then a lot of content to go after that as well. So it's more meant as an expression of how much of the game is remaining to be built. Obviously we have a lot of mechanics to go. We've got, in the short term, right? PvP, expeditions, the new burn mechanic, like all of the other pieces of combat, but also, 80 levels and 80 levels worth of content. So it's not so much meant to be like we sat down and figured out this is how far we are, as much as an approximation to say there's so much left to go. That it's still early in the game development cycle, and that, I mean, realistically, we're going to be building forever. So, technically speaking, we'll never be 100% complete, because we're going to be here forever. So I think that kind of answers the question, but if anybody wants to add anything to that, please feel free. All right.
I add. Ooh, me. Yeah, I think it was really well answered. I'll just say, like, even in the percentage complete, like, mindset, I think it's Ogre who from the community always raises his hand, is like, but even when it's complete, it's not. Which is true. Like, the foundation of the game is really what we're thinking about. If you look at similar games that are, or games that have at least similar foundations, you can always add. That's the incredible part of this type of game. You can dive deeper into lore, or you can move deeper into simply like the mechanics and the fighting, and add more hunts or like PvE type of combat. You can add more ways for PvP, and all of the deep economy and everything linked to that is yet to be even announced or designed or released or finished. There's so many different ways that like the core building team of Kingdom Studios can go. But just as we've been hoping all along, there's so many things to build on top of as like a hardcore community player and possible builder. So when we say less than 20% complete, like if you really zoom out like a decade in the future and you look at what we've done so far, maybe the number's even less. It's very easy to say there's no way that we're near like a third done or half done. So that's what the comment means, but we should all like definitely think bigger, because even when the foundation and things we haven't even talked about for a while, getting to like achievements and other things that for many games there may be small features, they may feel like small features, but they're huge and they really like tie into the game loop and make it fun. Other things like social interactions directly in the game, and maybe, you know, people have been asking about guilds and things that we're not very close to yet, but imagine when all that foundation is done, it's like the real game kind of begins there. So it's not a percentage completion of the game, it's like percentage completion of the foundation, where like more traditional real game experiences are there, and then ease of entry is also there as well. Mass adoption and things become much more real when we get closer to a higher percentage complete of foundation. So just don't want people to misunderstand and say, you're 20% complete, so there's only about 5 times more content than we have today, and then you guys will stop building. That's not what the like soft estimate has ever been like intended to be communicated.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, I think that going off of that percentage and where the vision is, you guys can go back and listen to Dreamer and Hubert talk about exactly what some of the upcoming vision is around things. I really enjoyed that, and we clipped that section out. Bolon did, and we're able to kind of edit it, put it into YouTube and to Twitter, so that you can listen to what some of Hubert's plans are for dungeons and monsters, and Dreamer's vision around the the player aspects of everything in DFK. But there's just so much more to go. That's the fun part about this, is it continues to evolve over time. And I think that's a interesting 15% is what gets mentioned a lot of times, which means there's still 85% or so to go, which may continue for the foreseeable future. But yeah, there's just a constant evolution of DFK, and that's the fun part about it, is just being able to continually look at what that vision is, that long-term vision and long-term goals that are out there. But yeah, it's a pretty cool segment that Bolon was clipped out. It's about 10 minutes, guys. You can go back and watch it on YouTube or see it on Twitter if you'd like to see that.
To clarify here, I get like 2% of the credit. I literally clipped it, and then KP did all of the editing. So, but yes, thank you, KP, for doing that editing. By the way, it came together very nicely. So definitely do check out that clip if you have not seen it. I believe we tweeted it as well, right, KP?
Yeah, I sent it out there. So it's available on many different ways to look at it, including captions, which I know some of you liked, and uncaptioned, which others of you appreciate. So lots of different versions out there. But yeah, that vision segment that was done last week by Dreamer and Hubert and others, I'd love to hear Fox's opinions as well, and Beatles and everybody else on the team, because that vision just continues to evolve over time, and it's so much fun to listen to.
One day we're going to take an hour and just debate subtitles versus not, but not today. Got another question for you, Hubert. Thoughts on a future incentive item similar to rare candy in Pokemon, where you can only use it once or twice on a hero, and it's extremely hard to get, like Greater Atonements were back in the day, and you can use that item to get a single level up out of your hero?
Yeah, I don't dislike though that idea. Like things that are one-time use per hero, I think are generally safe to be a little bit more powerful than something that you can use over and over again. I'm not sure, maybe once we get a little bit further down with PvP, we can think about things of that nature. I don't see us doing anything like in the short term of that, like that, but I don't dislike the idea though.
Nice. Any thoughts or plans on the visuals unknown gene gene slots?
Yeah, not too much to say on that. We did have some extra space on the genes, so there's something that we could use it for potentially, but right at the moment, I don't think we have any plans to do anything with it right now.
Very nice, very nice. Let's see. There's a question of if we've given any consideration to Tron for a potential realm. If anybody wants to chime in, feel free. But otherwise, I'll just say we are always open to talking to anyone and everyone. But it's also not something that we are progressive or aggressively pursuing at this particular moment. But if anybody wants to expand, feel free.
I know that Sunbear's always out there looking for additional partnerships, and Tron's definitely a chain that's been around for a while. It's got a ton of total value locked on it, so he's always exploring different partnerships, and that's one of the things that Dreamer and Sunbear especially are going to be doing down at Consensus. And there's always those opportunities for different things, and continue to make sure that you mention those opportunities as well, you guys in the community. If you have some connections, feel free to share them with Sunbear or anybody on the team so that we can have those conversations. And I know that lots of good things come, including the the partnership with Metis from the community, so continue to share those, and Tron may be an option at some point in the future.
Perfect. Hubert, any thoughts on the Gorax receiving a buff?
What's wrong with the Gorax? I think probably not going to change it. I mean, I know it has trade-offs, as do a lot of different things in our game, but in terms of like damage output capacity, I think that is the highest, like as far as like single hit damage capability. I think that weapon beats everything else. I mean, it does have a little bit lower accuracy, so when you miss, that doesn't feel great. But that kind of just plays into the kind of chaotic nature of berserkers in particular, since those like their main weapon is the two-handed axe. But yeah, not really planning on adjusting it. If we were to make adjustments, it does like beg the question of, are we going to adjust like do some sort of trade-in process where you trade in your old Gorax for a new one kind of thing, or would it only apply to new Goraxes that were minted? So like it kind of can get a bit messy in terms of like how we deal with it, since the Gorax itself has all of its stats stored on chain. It's an NFT. Same with any of the other equipment that you can get. So making adjustments to those generally would require a transaction. And usually, when it comes to NFTs, we tend to, leave that up to the player to do things like that, as we've, had to do with like gene re-rolling in the past with our heroes. So anyway, it's kind of involved. It may be if we do find that a certain tier of weapon is just not very great, eventually Void Hunts will kind of phase out, their loot tables might change, and the availability of certain things may go away at some point. But yeah, it's kind of a tough one. We actually did talk about this kind of recently with something else, but yep.
Very nice. Thank you, sir. Also, Fox got internet back, so he's back. Hey, Fox.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yay. Okay, sorry.
Thoughts on changing up Void Hunts to where Void Hunts are free, still use stamina, but instead of retries, you are paying a resurrection fee per hero that dies in the Void Hunt.
I mean, it's an interesting idea, but I mean, it also kind of tends to punish players that are using, not the most optimal heroes. So I think that, for new players, that probably would be a change that would be less welcome than how we have things set up right now. In general, I'm not really that keen on adjusting things in a way where the Void Hunts are just completely free. Just having there be an entry fee does kind of also help increase the value of the loot that you can get from it, because it's there's a kind of a cost of iterations before you get something that kind of is baked into that price. So, I think what we would probably see if we did do something like that is likely a reduction in the value, like the sale price of a lot of equipment. So I think there's definitely trade-offs there that would need to be considered, and it's not something that I think I'd like to see us do, at least in the in the short term.
Very nice. Thank you, sir. Any thoughts on a new type of stone that split the bonus 50-50 between two stats?
Yeah, I've thought about that sort of a thing. Same thing for like attunement crystals too. I think for the time being, I think we have enough as it stands. But maybe somewhere down the road we might want to revisit that. There's just already a lot of different tokens that are just associated with doing this, and if we had paired things like that, then that increases the count of how many different stones there are by quite a bit. So yeah.
It's a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Combat related one. Thoughts on the ability tooltips and adding a descriptive word for if bonuses are multiplicative or additive to help differentiate how they calculate.
Yeah. So I think in general, I know with like the shield bonus that was being applied as multiplicative, and we've changed it to be additive. So I think that like what we're usually going for with bonuses is like anything that increases something is considered additive in the sense that, like, for example, if attack is being increased, and you have multiple bonuses that are increasing attack, that all of those bonuses would be added together, and then that final amount would then increase your attack by that percentage. So I don't know that there's too many more places where it actually is multiplicative. And I think in general, I think additive makes the most sense, but I'm trying, I haven't looked at every single thing we have, so there might be something that's still multiplicative. So I think just in general, when in doubt, assume it's additive, I would say. And if that's the case, if we can apply that everywhere, then I don't know that we necessarily need to have terminology to like differentiate between the two.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Appreciate you, Hubert, as always. We do have a guest joining us here to hop in here at the end. We have Huffenstein popping in. How are you doing, Huffenstein?
Oh, guys, I'm doing great. I mean, I'm just out in the middle of the woods working my ass off. But other than that, you got me with my pants down, to be honest. Just appreciate you guys just considering me and having me hop on with you guys. This is honestly a bucket list item. I'm not gonna lie. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you here with us. If you have anything you would like to say or ask or anything, feel free. At the very least, tell us where we can find you, Huff.
Pretty much all over. I'm on YouTube, Discord. I'm all over X, of course. And yeah, YouTube channel is Huffenstein. If you guys want to check me out, I'm a DFK educator, and that's my biz, man. I'm just trying to teach everybody about DFK and teach them a little bit of strategy, a little bit of know-how, just so people can get going the way they need to go. And yeah, that's pretty much me at the nutshell.
And you are a Mythic Squad member, right?
Oh, 100%.
Do you have a response to this call out from Bogside Chats?
I could, but it would just fuel the fire of what he's trying to stir. Words are words, actions are speaking much louder. So we know who the people are who sit at the top. We're going to sit here quietly and we're going to smash the shit when, shit hits the fan. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. And wait till things open up. Things are going to get hot around here.
Very nice, very nice. Looking forward to it. Well, don't go anywhere just yet. We're going to do final thoughts from anybody up here, and then we will come back to you for a bullish. As always, I will throw in my reminder, don't ape into broken mechanics. Everything is subject to change. If you feel like it's too strong, it might be, and if it is, it won't remain that way. Thank you, everybody who is up here, for taking the time to hop up and answer all of these questions. Thank you to everybody who continues to submit questions for us to answer, because otherwise it would be a really awkward hour. As always, you can submit questions to talk.defykingdoms.com or the AMA questions channel in Discord. Any final thoughts from anybody else up here before we go back to Huff? All right, Huff, take it away.
Well, just want to thank you guys again for having me up here, and bullish! Fantastic AMA, guys. Thank you.
Bullish. How's it going?
See you guys.
See you guys next week.
Later, guys.
DeFi Kingdoms, where you can summon heroes, trade with other players, quest, and fight challenging enemies in a fantasy world brought to life in pixel art animation. Command your legion